And one of the learning theories that we have been selected is about behaviorism, in which has primarily concerned with the measurable and observable aspects of human behaviors. And it also views development as a continuous process in which children plays a passive role. Additionally, it is a general approach that is used in a variety of settings, including both clinical and educational. And so we cannot see the mind, the id, or the unconscious, but we see how people act, react, and behave. So from that behavior, we may be able to make inferences of what's about their mind and brain. So now let's turn with the types of learning. First, the classical conditioning. In psychology, it is a behavioral process whereby a response becomes more frequent or more predictable in a given environment as a result of reinforcement.
Operant conditioning is demonstrated when he reinforcing consequences immediately following the response increases its future likelihood. Adversive consequences immediately following the response to decrease its future likelihood. Pavlov, also known as Ivan P. Pavlov. Pavlov is Russia's most famous scientist, and he also won great distinction for his research on the physiology digestive system. Pavlov also discovered conditioning.
The next theory is Watson's. Watson's is the one who convinced the psychologists that the real explanation of human behavior lay in our nervous system, and that as soon as we understood the brain, most of the mysteries would disappear. And lastly, we have Skinner's. Skinner looked at the learning process in the opposite ways, investigating how learning was affected by stimuli presented after an act was performed. So he found out that certain stimuli cause the organism to repeat the act more frequently, and he called that stimuli with this effect reinforcers.
Piaget theory of cognitive development. Jean Piaget is a Swiss psychologist famous for his work with children and his theory on cognitive development. Piaget is a pioneer in the field of children's education. He fundamentally changed the way that educators view on how a child learns. The first stage in the sensory is the sensory motor stage, age birth to 2. In the sensory motor stage, we develop through experiences and movement. Our 5 senses, our brain want to see, want to hear, want to smell, want to taste, and touch as much as possible. First, we start with temporal reflexes, and soon after we develop our first habit. From 4 months old, we become aware of things beyond of our own body, and then as we get older, we learn to do things intentionally. The second stage of cognitive development is the pre-operational stage, age to 2 to 7. Our thinking is mainly categorized by symbolic functions and intuitive thought. We have a lot of fantasies and believe objects are alive, as we are not able to apply specific cognitive operations. Piaget calls this stage pre-operational. We learn to speak and understand that word, image, and gesture are symbol for something else. Most of us become very curious and ask many questions. We want to know everything. We can call it the birth of primitive reasoning. Piaget called it intuitive age because while we realize that we have a vast amount of knowledge, we have no idea how we acquire it. Our thinking is this stage is still pretty egocentric. We think that others see the world like we do and still don't understand that they see it differently.
The next stage of cognitive development is concrete operational stage, from ages 7 to 11 years old. So during this stage, children can perform a number of logical mental operations on concrete objects. So for example, they begin to understand the concept of conservation, that the amount of liquid in a short white cup is equal in a tall skinny glass. So in short, their thinking becomes more logical and organized. The last stage, or the final stage of cognitive development, is formal operational stage, from ages 12 and above. So in this stage, children become more systematic and reasonable, and they can not only reason of tangible objects and events, but also they possess capability of reasoning and thinking in more abstract, hypothetical, and idealistic ones. How is the cognitive development theory can be applied in facilitating learning? Knowing the stages in their inclinations can help a teacher properly adapt to the needs of the pupils or the students, because it's pointless to underestimate their abilities or invest time laying a foundation that they've already surpassed.
The humanistic theory of teaching and learning is an educational theory that believes in teaching the whole student. A humanistic approach will have a strong focus on students' emotional well-being and internally view children as innately good at the core. Humanistic learning is a student-centered that focuses on the idea that learners bring out the best of themselves and that humans are driven by their feelings more than rewards and punishments. This approach encourages the student to take control over their education. They can make choices that can range from daily activities to future goals and makes them more comfortable and more focused when they learning in schools.
So now let us proceed first to the role of the learners. First, learning should be an active process. It means in this theory, learning must be an active process, meaning the learner must involve themselves to the learning activities for them to learn. Second, learner being the source of the authority. This theory is a learner-centered. It means the authority is in the learners. Next one is the learner establishes the quantity of learning. They are the one who decide if how much they will learn. Next one is making the correct and incorrect choice. So in humanistic learning theory, the freedom to make a choice is in the learners. Now let us proceed to the role of a teacher. So what is the role of a teacher in this theory? First, the teacher assumes the role of a coach or a facilitator. Doesn't mean this theory is a learner-centered. Teachers are not important. They are still important in this theory. So they are the one who facilitate their students, or they are the one who called coach of their students. So they are just facilitating the students on what they are doing, but they are not controlling them. Next one is must be aware of the student unique needs. So the role of a teacher here is to give support to their students. So they must know what is the needs of their students for them to support the learners well. Second is need to ensure the learning activities are related to actual life experience. So the teacher still, they must guide their students and make sure that what the students are doing for them to learn will be applied in actual life.